Hey guys, I'm Bella, the Maker Mama boss lady behind Fiber and Fox, and I am here today, finally, with a pattern drop. It's been a while. It's been since last year. It is now August of 2022, and I am coming at you with a new pattern. Today we're going to be talking about the Dandelion Disperse Shawl. I've got lots of inspiration for you, lots of information on the pattern before you get started, and basically anything you're going to want or need to know about this new design. So let me talk you through it. First off, let me say you can find links to everything that I'm going to be talking about as far as my Etsy and Ravelry shops, where you can find the pattern, blog post with more info. All of that is going to be down below this video. So click show more, the little down bar, drop down thing. It'll take you to all the places that you need to go to find the Dandelion Disperse. I usually start out talking about inspiration. There's no huge deep meaning. Some of my designs have a really deep or like storyline behind them. This is really just another in my dandelion stitch pattern collection because I'm obsessed with this stitch. Let me show it to you up close. I'm going to try to wear this throughout the video, but it is very warm and I am 8 months pregnant, so it's a little much, but this is the dandelion stitch. I have several other shawl patterns, home decor patterns, baby patterns. I will link my bundle on Ravelry as well with all of those if you're interested in other dandelion stitch items. But I just love this stitch. It is a modified version of daisy or star stitch. It is crochet, if you were uncertain. And I've used it a whole bunch, and I think it makes beautiful. It's beautiful for stitch definition. It's just really unique, and I love it. And this is the first time I've made a design, I think, where the yellow wasn't the dandelion like prominent color. So I'm pretty proud of myself for using some other colors. For inspiration wise, it was probably more birthed out of not only my love for this stitch, but hashtag make knitters jealous. I love to design stuff in fingering weight yarn and using unique stitch patterns that kind of have a knit-like vibe to them that makes you go, wait, that's crochet? I really love that, and no yarn snobbery here, but I love working with fingering weight yarn. I love working with indie dyed yarn, and I wanted to try mohair because I feel like that is something knitters are very into, and I wanted to give that a try in a crochet pattern and maybe help some crocheters who felt like maybe they couldn't use mohair or that was just for knitting or whatever. I wanted to make that accessible to be able to use it in an easy and beautiful way. So we're going to talk about the yarn in a little bit, but that's pretty much the inspiration behind it. Is I wanted to make a pretty thing with some mohair yarn using my favorite stitch. And so I did. The yarns that I used on this one are actually all one-of-a-kind skeins. They're Lucky Strikes from Fiber for the People yarn. These are the colors that I used. There we go. Really, really beautiful. And I had actually gotten them back in 2020. So I've had them for like 2 years, and as soon as I got them, I knew that I wanted to use them together. I wanted to use dandelion stitch. I wanted to create a shawl that was worked end to end. And I had a picture in my mind, but I was just really intimidated by the mohair. Again, as a crocheter, it's not something that you see used often, but I wanted to use it. But I was really nervous about designing because a lot of times when I design, I have to frog stuff, and mohair does not really love being frogged. So I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. So it took me a while to work up the gumption to actually make the shawl. But once I got started, like, I'm so pleased with how this came out. So you're not going to be able to find these exact colorways. If you are curious, this is my color 1. This one is called Lily Pad. This is color 2. It is called Pewter. Color 3, it's called Algae. Color 3 is your mohair or your lace weight. But the shawl is worked obviously in 3 colors. The mohair is in there as color 3, but at no point are you holding it double. It is held single, and you can see it in the stripe portions here. And I think the mohair creates just a beautiful, obviously people love it for the halo and the drape and just the airiness of it. It is very warm. It's just very open, and particularly at this gauge. It's just, I'm trying to show it to you on my head. It's kind of ridiculous. I think it's just so stunning, and I really, really, really love this color as well. But if you are intimidated by mohair, let me talk you through this a little bit. So you're only working it in the stripe section. You're not holding it double with anything else, so you don't have to worry about holding 2 strands of the mohair or with the fingering weight in the mohair. You're just working with 1 strand of yarn at a time. And it is obviously, typically a lace weight is silk mohair, but it's just smaller. Like, it's not scary, it's just smaller. And maybe the first row or 2, you're kind of like, ooh, this is tiny, ooh, this is fluffy, ooh, this is a little different as far as stitch definition, but I promise you, if you are familiar with crocheting, you can absolutely work with the mohair. The birds and the creatures are getting feisty outside. I'm sorry if you can hear that, windows open. But yeah, I would really recommend that you could try. You just try it. And if mohair itself is an issue for you, be it fluff or sensitivity or whatnot, you could absolutely use a lace weight yarn of some other fiber content. And also the other two yarns, so these two are fingering weight, and you're actually going to be working your gauge swatch likely in color 2 because you're going to have the most left over of that one. So just to avoid yarn chicken, there's notes in the pattern on that. But you're going to be gauging and fingering weight yarn, and because you're going to be blocking it at the end and the gauge is fingering weight, you absolutely could sub in a third color of fingering weight yarn if you didn't want to use the lace weight or the mohair and avoid that tiny yarn or the fluff or whatever. You can definitely use fingering weight as well. And a lot of testers did that and it came out just beautifully. So just know that there's options there. But I did 2 fingering weight colors and then a mohair contrast. And I think the results are really, really lovely. I got kind of polarizing views. I didn't know that gray and green was like something that you either loved or hated, but some people were like, oh, that's so beautiful, I love it. And some people were like, oh, that hurts my eyes. Like, I don't want to see that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I think it's really nice. But you can totally sub in whatever colors you'd like. And like I said, these were one-of-a-kind skeins. So you have lots of room to play with color. I did want to let you just know yardage-wise, roughly what you're going to need. So the fingering weight yarns are both 100 gram skeins. I used about 375 yards of color 1, and then roughly 260 yards of color 2, and 130 yards. This was a 50 gram skein, and I obviously have lots left here. About 130 yards of color 3, and you could probably get away with a 25 gram skein or some remnant if you have leftover mohair in your stash. There's room to play there too. So 3 colors. You decide if you want to do the mohair or not. You could also, when I show you the tester photos, there's lots of options. Some people did 2 colors. You could easily, I want to make this all in a mohair, just one big solid mohair shawl, but lots of options on color playing if you want to mess around with yarns. Yardages may vary. I usually like to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what's included in the pattern, how the pattern's worked up, what you can expect. So let me just walk you through that. The pattern itself is worked. I'm not really sure what this construction is actually called. I call it end to end or tip to tip, I suppose. But you're going to be starting over here on this tiny little green end. Then you're going to be working some increases. It's flat across this top. It is a triangle shaped shawl. I will put in some footage that will help you visualize a little bit better. And also the tester photos will give you a better idea. It's hard to show you sitting down, but it is worked from end to end. So you're starting at the small end, you're doing some increases, you're getting to this middle point, and then you're doing some decreases and striping at the same time down the other side. So you will have a good grasp on the stitch through the first half, not having to change colors, and then by the time you've mastered that, and might be getting bored, not like really bored because it is a very interesting stitch, but by the time you're tired of working in one color, you switch over to 2 colors, do some decreases, and boom, you're done. So I really like that construction. I like the way it hangs. It's very easy to wear. Some triangle shawls are kind of fiddly as far as like, okay, where do I put this? You could definitely wear it over your shoulders as well if you wanted to go this way. Not my go-to, but you could wear it this way. You could tie it. You could do the Little Women thing. But I usually wear it this way with the middle point in front, or I know Andrea Mowry loves to off-center the point, but just like this, wrapped around, and it stays on really nicely because it has these really long ends. It would also be really cute to add some tassels on the bottom there. Tassels always. But yeah, very simple. And the whole thing is Dandelion stitch, which I said is a modified version of Crochet Daisy or Star Stitch, but I've made it very easy for you. Included in the pattern is both photo and video tutorials. The whole thing is written, fully tech edited, fully tested. So full written instructions, very detailed, but the stitch itself can get a little wordy in written format. So I've made sure that I have a photo tutorial in there for you, and there's also a video that shows me working step by step through the stitch, so you can kind of pair up the words with the visual and really have a clear understanding of how to do the stitch. But it's not hard. It's just unusual, but if you're familiar with like single crochet, half double crochet, it's just some different placement, you can absolutely do it. We've labeled the pattern as intermediate level crochet just because of the dandelion stitch. It's not something that everybody already knows how to do. And also you're going to be working with mohair, and most people aren't used to working with lace, but it's not a hard pattern. like I said, you're working from one end to the other end, doing the same stitch throughout, other than just the decreases on the edge, which are very basic, simple decreases. So there's nothing complicated that you need to be keeping track of, and other than color changes, it's all pretty much, you make it bigger, you make it smaller, you're done. Nothing complicated going on there. And I hold your hand throughout. So I have the fully written pattern, and it has all the instructions on when to change color and all of that in there. But you kind of get into a rhythm once you're a few rows in, where you can not really have to look at the pattern anymore, and especially in that first half when it's just one solid color and you're not worried about changing colors. Get a good rhythm going, kind of mindless. You just know to do your increases, your decreases, all of that. Very simple. But if you're one that doesn't like to count or do a lot of math, I've also really made sure that I've done all the math for you, and I really don't like to do math, so you're welcome. I love you. But there is a separate sheet in there as well that actually has row by row, stitch by stitch, every single count that you may need. So if you want to work like 10 rows and then double check that you're on the right track, didn't go wrong somewhere, there's like a spreadsheet type format that has in row 22, you were going to have this many stitches, and there's no questions as far as just like work this big chunk and where did I go wrong. I do that on a lot of my shawl patterns, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. People seem to really find that helpful. So I have that in there for you as well if you want to reference it, just so you don't have to count and math out, okay, how many dandelions should I have now? So I have that all included for you, as well as the full written instructions, and I hope you find it very helpful. And I also like the row by row spreadsheet type format, because it's like in columns and lines and whatnot, and it's also great if you want to do coloring, or if you want to highlight like where your color changes are, to just visually see color contrast. That helps me a lot. Again, it's all labeled, it's all written, but sometimes it's nice to go through with a pencil or a highlighter and kind of make a coloring sheet out of it. So that's an option if you want to do that as well. Other things that are included, there's other video tutorials linked in there as well, as far as how to wet block something, because this really is one that I would recommend blocking, especially if you're using the lace weight or the mohair to really open up those stitches and get that beautiful drape. And also, like, I use 3 totally different yarn bases, and the gauge is, you know, good enough, but not exactly the same throughout. So it really helps to even out and get that nice flat top edge, that nice point. You're gonna wanna wet block it. So there's a video in there to walk you through that, video on how to add projects to Ravelry. All sorts of helpful hints. I really try to make my patterns very visually helpful, very just leave no questions asked, because I really like that in a pattern where I'm not having to wonder, well, what did they mean? Or wait, now I have to do math. Wait, I have to calculate this while doing this at the same time. I try to make it really straightforward for you. So while it is an unusual stitch, I think that it's very accessible, maybe not as a first time crochet shawl pattern, but if you're familiar with crochet, I think this is a good one. Nothing too complicated going on in there. My favorite part of pattern drop videos is always sharing the tester photos with you. As always, I had a great group of testers. I had people who were using the mohair, people who weren't, people who were doing just fingering weight, people who only did 2 colors. So just a lot of different options. And I loved seeing how people paired either something super contrasty together, or we had some people who did very similar colors, so it almost worked like a fade, and just stuff that I wouldn't have come up with. I always love seeing my pattern in the hands of other creatives, because that's when it really comes to life. I was pretty pleased with my color combo, but then I see all theirs and I'm like, oh, that's so good. So there is a blog post linked down below that has all this information I've talked about and a little bit more, as well as some pattern tester info and links over to their project pages and whatnot if you want to check out their individual information. But let me share now with you these beautiful, beautiful Dandelion Disperse Shawls created by my testers. So I hope that this pattern drop video has left you feeling inspired, feeling empowered to be able to crochet with yarns and stitches that maybe you hadn't considered before, maybe a new construction end-to-end triangle, just inspired in some way or another. I love crochet. I love beautiful yarn. I love making knitters jealous, and I love being able to share that with all of you. And it's always so exciting to see the pattern come to life, not only with testers, but as it releases out into the world, to see what you guys come up with. As you tag me, that's like my favorite thing. So please, if you are going to be making this shawl, either in progress or finished, whatever, tag me in photos on Instagram. Use hashtags. You can tag me as fiber.and.fox if you want to make sure that I see it, or use the hashtag Dandelion Disperse Shawl. And I would love to see, and I usually share those things to my stories and stuff as well, because it's so fun to see what you guys come up with. So thank you so much for your support of this design. This is likely my only design of this year. I've been busy designing a baby. So I appreciate you guys sticking around with me for all of my dandelions and crazy things. I hope you love this one. I really do, and I can't wait to see your versions of it. So tag me and let me know what yarns you're going to be using down below. If you have any questions, you can always contact me, bella@fiberandfox.com. But I think this one's going to be pretty straightforward for you. I was very smooth sailing through testing and editing, and yeah, I'm really pleased with it. So I'm really glad that this design finally is going out into the world after like 2 years of being stuck in my head. And I hope that more of us start using mohair. So be inspired and go pick up a hook and make some beautiful dandelions and disperse them out into the world. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Is my lip getting sweaty? I feel like my lips are getting sweaty. Wearing mohair, 8 months pregnant in August. Ooh, the things I do for you people.